Welcome to the Friday Shoot-Around, your K-State basketball show, presented by Booth Creek Wagyu. Now let's go to the Flint Hills, home of GPC's hidden studio. Here's your host, Ryan Gilbert.
Back-to-back wins for Kansas State. The Wildcats are back on the bubble, a win over BYU on Saturday, and most recently an overtime victory over West Virginia at home, both of those inside of Bramlage Coliseum. And so the BYU win, Clint, was very impressive, and I think it's safe to say that that win over West Virginia had us all a little bit nervous, but as they say, a win's a win, right?
That's any way you can get it this time of the year, you got to get it. So whether that means you give up a 25-point lead, but you still figure out a way to win, hey, you come out on the winning side. So that's always good.
Before we break down both of these games, a quick message from our friends at Booth Creek Wagyu.
From the tailgate to the back deck, remember to elevate your grilling this season with our friends from Booth Creek Wagyu. Their ranch is located just north of Manhattan and proudly raises authentic Wagyu beef from farm to table. Visit their retail locations in Manhattan and Overland Park or online at boothcreekwagyu.com. Before
we break down both of these games, Clint, overall the NCAA tournament, back when we were recording this last week, seemed a little far-fetched and K-State was going to have to catch fire. Well, back-to-back wins, and now you look at the bubble, K-State's back in the mix. And so, we talked about 5 to grind, right, at the end of the games and how that's, allowed K-State to win those overtime games. But 5 to grind, these last 5 games, K-State, you said they need to get 4 out of those last 5. They're off to a 2-0 start now.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, obviously protect home court, and we had to protect home court. So I think, that fell in our favor of having, our first 2 games at home in this last 5. Now we've got to go on the road and play better on the road than what we have in the past. And but we're right where we need to be. I think if you're thinking about K-State, we hold our own destiny, and so it's in our hands to finish strong and make this push towards the NCAA tournament. I think Tyler Perry, he said, I'm only focused on those 4 letters, and that's the NCAA tournament, and so, hopefully we can get there.
Let's go back to the BYU game, Clint. Just your thoughts from that one. Arguably that was the best conference game, from start to finish. K-State held a comfortable lead for most of that game. Just your thoughts and takeaways from that BYU win.
Yeah, it started off really well. I think Tyler Perry, making some shots early. We talked about, jumping on BYU from the very beginning. We're at home, and if you can jump on them from the very beginning and cause them to call an early timeout, which we did, started out 12-2. But, Perry's level of difficulty in making shots to start the game, I think just brought a lot of confidence, not only for him, but just for our team. He makes his first shot coming off of a down screen. It's probably a 9 out of 10 difficulty, contested left, right, 3-point shot. And then his next shot is in the corner. And shot clock's winding down and kind of one-on-one jab step and shooting it over a guy, probably a 10 out of 10 difficulty. And then his third shot's an and 1-3, and so I think it really just kind of set the tone for us to be able to make shots and shoot the basketball well, and then obviously Arthur stepped up later. But for us to come out early, get the crowd involved early, I think that was really key for us to play well against BYU.
You look at what BYU did the other night against KU in Allen Fieldhouse, right? That makes that win look even that much more impressive. But you mentioned Tyler Perry, right? We've talked about this time and again. Okay, second half of games, he really gets it going. But if he can find that consistency, find that confidence early on so that he's set for a full 40 minutes of good basketball. He set a career high against West Virginia on Monday with, it was 28, 29 points. And so, Perry, if he can get going for the full entirety of the game and find that game in and game out, he takes his team to a whole new level.
Yeah, and I think he's finally, we're seeing he's getting just more comfortable even playing off the ball, and that's why I think part of the reason why Day-Day Ames has been starting, is allow Perry to kind of get off the ball and come off screens where he's in a catch and shoot situation versus having to create his off the dribble so much, and I think that's where we're seeing kind of the fruits of that. And where Coach Tank said, hey, he's one of the best shooters in America, we can see it, off the ball and in the catch and shoot situation. So him getting going early, I think just helps our team because we know what he can do late. And just really boost us early on and start feeling good, right? And anytime you can make shots early in the game, I think it helps the defense. And then teams really have to start focusing on him, which then allows guys like Arthur or Cam to step up later.
Let's switch gears now. West Virginia, Clint. I don't know. Did you see Jerome Tang's comments about the student attendance and the fans?
Yeah, I
So,
did, and
go ahead. I mean, it's your take on that. I mean, the crowd, you can't deny that was one of the worst crowds of the season. What do you make of Jerome Tang's comments?
well, it's tough, right? I mean, I think you would like to see us to have, obviously more support at a home game. It's a Tuesday night game, where I don't know what students have going on a Tuesday night, but you think they'd be able to hopefully make it out to the game. But you're playing one of the bottom teams in the Big 12, and maybe just not a lot of energy, for the opponent that we're playing. But we obviously need, we need our community there, need the students there, especially that are right there in Manhattan. They don't have to travel in from surrounding cities or even states to get to the game. And so, we need those guys showing up. And like I said, this team still has an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament. And, we're going to have another home game. We got one home game left, and we're going to need them there for that senior night against ISU. So hopefully, they can take that into account and realize that they make a difference, and then that's the biggest thing is when we have a good crowd, it makes a difference. It helps the guys, it energizes the team, and it helps us play our best basketball.
I talked about this on our questions podcast earlier in the week about just how Jerome Tang's been outspoken with when you play Kansas. You can see how Bramwell just sold out. The student section's filled up, and he wants it to be people show up right for the love of Kansas State rather than who the opponent is, the hatred for the opponent. And so I think that's probably one of the frustrating parts for Tang is, okay, there's no denying West Virginia, not the best team in the Big 12. They're, one of the worst, but still he wants fans to show up for that love of the Wildcats rather than the opponent.
Yeah, and that's obviously what you hope, right? It doesn't matter who we play. It's when you build a program to where people want to be there and want to support and are passionate about the team and about the guys and what they're trying to do. And that's ultimately the level we're trying to get at every single game. Whether that's a conference game, non-conference game, doesn't matter who we're playing. Be passionate about the purple and white. And so hopefully, I know some people were might have been upset with some of his comments or whatnot, but it's all in good spirit of, hey, we're K-State, and let's support this team. Let's support these guys. No matter whether we're winning, losing, these guys are out there giving everything they have, right? And that they're bleeding purple and then trying to do it for the school and for the state. And so come out and support them, and obviously it helps them play well.
Okay, Clint, West Virginia. I mean, this is a really difficult one to break down. You get off to a pretty good start. You go up by 25 points at one point. You let it slip away. You're down late against West Virginia. I think they were down by 4, right? And so they claw back, get it to overtime. Of course, they always win. Are you encouraged by the fact that K-State won the game and, all that aside, they win? Or are you more maybe concerned with the way that K-State let that lead slip away?
Yeah, well, I think my biggest concern, and it really hasn't changed, is just the offensive rebounding that we've given up, and you look at the BYU game, we gave up 19 against West Virginia. We gave up 18, and I thought there were stretches in that game in the second half where West Virginia made some tough shots, but the ones they missed, they got offensive rebounds, were able to get a second chance opportunity at it. So that's still my biggest concern. I think offensively we kind of went cold when they got hot, and it was flipped in the first half. We were hot and they were cold, right? And so that's just the ebbs and flows of the game. I think we would have liked to get more stops down at the end of the game, so maybe it didn't go into overtime. But hats off to West Virginia. Hats off to Josh Eilert, obviously former K-State basketball player and alum. And, he did a good job having his guys prepared in that second half to come out and play really well. And, Kirk Christian stepped up and made some tough shots. And sometimes that's the way it falls. So, obviously when you're up 25, you don't expect for the game to get into overtime. And so I think it's just one of those learnings we have to take into account and got to figure out ways to continue to score the ball and continue to get stops on the defensive end.
It was a really good way to summarize Kansas State's season, really. You have your good stretches, you have your bad stretches, but in the end here, you get the wins in overtime, which is what K-State's done all year. And obviously you get it to overtime. I think that's kind of comparable to where we are right now. You get yourself back on the bubble with a few wins over this last week, and now it's time for that 5 to grind, right, Clint? I want to ask you this, though. Did you get the sense that maybe K-State let its foot off the gas in the second half when it built up that comfortable lead and got complacent?
Yeah, and I thought there were some defensive breakdowns that we had, but like I said, I think too West Virginia made shots. I mean, those guys made some
Yeah.
really tough shots. I mean, when you have Raekwon Battle, and we know he's one of the best players in the Big 12, but making step back threes over contested. I mean, there's not much else you can do. I mean, if he's going to make that shot, it's hey, I'm right there. I contested it, and he made it. I mean, it's better. It's good defense, better offense. And so what you'd like to have seen is maybe we, you know. I thought we got to the free throw line decently, but we missed some opportunities at the free throw line. I think in the second half, and we'd like to see us get more stops there. And the foot off the gas, I think still goes back to what I mentioned about the rebounding. And we just have to be better at when we do get the stop of corralling and gang rebounding to go ahead and get the ball and get on the other end of the floor. And I think that's going to be important for us moving forward.
You mentioned K-State was hot in the first half, cold in the second half, and vice versa for West Virginia. But in terms of Kansas State, 3-point shooting, is that something that you think is sustainable for this team to maybe live and die by the three and hope that they can kind of get hot from beyond the arc in games? Or do you think that this offense needs to have some more, guys going downhill, stuff like that?
Yeah, well, 11 for 19 in the first half against West Virginia. I don't know if that's sustainable. It felt like we hit every shot we threw up, which was really nice. And, but I do think that we have to be able to shoot from the outside to be able to compete and be able to win. And so, we can't have games where we go 4 for 28. That's not going to be good for us. I think we have to have a healthy percentage, whether that's, 6 for 13, whether that's 8 for 20, a healthy percentage from the outside for us to win basketball games. But we also have to get to the free throw line. You look at our guys, our main three scorers and Perry, Kaluma, and Carter, and they've done a really good job of taking advantage of the opportunities at the free throw line. I think against West Virginia, I mean, they went 9 for 10, 9 for 10, 5 for 6. So, if I add that up, quick math here was at 18, 23 for 26. So, when you have your best three players shooting 23 for 26 from the free throw line, hey, the more we can get there with those three guys, the better opportunity it is for us to score, and that points per possession goes up.
You mentioned the rebounding. Jerrell Colbert fouled out in that game against West Virginia, and so that's obviously a little costly. But Will McNair, I think, stepped up, had some good plays, and David Gasson, earlier on in the year, I know fans were, you got to think back, but fans were not happy with David Gasson. He maybe wasn't performing at the level that he wanted to be at, but now over this last couple of weeks, Gasson has been almost a difference maker. He's kind of joined. I don't think he's there yet, just because I don't know how much he can create his own shot, but he's joining or getting close to that group of Carter and Perry and Kaluma.
Yeah, well, he brings just kind of a different dynamic to the team. Obviously he can rebound the basketball. He's long and athletic, can get out, run the floor. And then when he's making a pump fake three, that's when you know
Right.
it's a good night for him. But he brings a lot of hustle, a lot of energy, and I think having him come off the bench and bring that for us has been really, really good. And, he's settling into that role, and I think that's the thing early on. He was just kind of trying to figure out, like, where does he kind of fit within our three-headed monster with our three main scorers, and kind of where is he going to get opportunities. And now you see he's just settled into, I'm going to go play hard. I'm going to go make something happen, and we need those kind of guys, especially from a role perspective, which will help us overall as a team. So he's playing well. And you mentioned Will McNair. I think I saw a stat that said we're 9-1 when Will scores double figures. And I'll reiterate, man, when he gets the ball in the post or down by the block, I mean, he has one of the softest shots in that area in the paint. And so every time he shoots it down there, I think it's going in. I'm like, he's going to score. And, I think there's still opportunities for us to utilize him in that capacity as well.
Jerome Tang has talked about over this last week or two, his staff coming together and finding ways for K-State to, I guess, so they said they don't want to make wholesale changes, right? And they tried to find little ways to get better here and there. And I think that, in that West Virginia game, right, if you have one or two more turnovers or you let them get one or two more offensive rebounds, probably lose that game, right? So what have you seen, those fine, details? What has K-State done well recently? Because Jerome Tang said it, but he's not gotten into like real specific things. What have you seen over these last few games that leads you to believe this team is having more attention to detail?
Well, I think, even with you think about our turnovers, and we had 15 against West Virginia. And then we had obviously double figures against BYU. But to me, one of the keys there is the opponent fast break points. And West
Okay.
Virginia had five. I think BYU maybe had five as well. So even when you say, okay, there's 15 turnovers, but we only gave up five fast break points, I think that's really key. That tells you that some of our turnovers were either, turnovers where the ball went out of bounds and we were able to get our defense set, or we were able to get back and make them still try to score it through our set defense. And so I think that's really important, because the other team has 15, 20 fast break points. And then you look, I mean, that's when you have 15 turnovers, they could easily have 15 to 20 fast break points. I think that would be an area of concern. So I think that's been really good. Rebounding wise, as I mentioned, we got to get better in that aspect. But you look over the last two games too, we've shot the ball tremendously well, especially before the second half of the West Virginia game. I think we had three straight halves where we shot over 50%, and so anytime you can shoot the basketball well, hopefully our guys are, Perry's coming along now, like he's making shots. Hopefully he can continue doing that here down the stretch. It's great to see. Kaluma 28 against BYU, Perry 29 against West Virginia. I mean, those are tremendous numbers, and so hopefully they're feeling really good here down the stretch and continue scoring the ball.
This is the time of year where you want to get hot and have things start click, right? So
Oh yeah.
we'll have two more games to break down on the road at Cincinnati on Saturday, and then KU coming up on the road as well. But first, a quick break here on the Friday Shoot Around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
Only game that we have this season from Cincinnati. Didn't have them here in Bramwich Coliseum at home. So I guess just your thoughts. Have you scouted them much? Cincinnati's a team that was kind of on the bubble for a while. Now they've sort of fallen off a little bit. But, I mean, I'm sure that you go to a Cincinnati video podcast, I'm sure they're talking about the exact same stuff that, Clint, we've been talking about. This is a team that needs wins if they want to get to the NCAA tournament. They need wins now.
Yeah, and we got to go into their place, and it's always hard to win on the road. They're coming off of losing three in a row. But they only lost to Houston at Houston by 8. They lost TCU was the kind of got out of hand for them, and then Oklahoma State beat them as well. But they have 7 guys that average 7 or more points per game, with the most being about 11.9 or 12 points per game. So they're well balanced. I don't think they shoot the ball tremendously well from the outside, but they're going to be playing at home, so they could get hot. We can't let them get hot like we did, obviously, early against West Virginia. So we got to make sure that we protect the 3-point line, make everything tough. And obviously we want them shooting from the outside, but just make sure that we also finish that with the defensive rebound. We have to rebound. They're a good rebounding team. They're +9 in rebounding margin. So we're going to have to go in with the mindset of rebounding the basketball. And if we can win in that area of the game, then I think we'll be good.
You look back to the home losses against TCU and Oklahoma, you got to defend your home court in the Big 12, right? But when you do lose those games, okay, what's the next thing you got to do? Go steal one on the road, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to go steal one on the road. And like I said, this is the time of the year that however you can get it, right? And so whether we have to go into overtime, whether we get down 25 and come all the way back to win, whatever has to happen, we just have to figure out a way that we can win that basketball game on the road at Cincinnati. And that obviously keeps our NCAA tournament hopes alive.
I think you're probably the best person to ask, how do you beat KU inside of Allen Fieldhouse? You would know.
Oh man, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's a crazy environment. I think Mark Pope from BYU said it. He said, walking in there at the tip off and just how crazy it is, how loud it is. He's like, he's never experienced something like that. And so it's a crazy environment. It's a hard place to go in and get comfortable, but you have to get comfortable early, and you can't allow them to jump out early on us and really kind of get that crowd going. And so I think from the very beginning, you have to settle in. You have to be very detailed in everything that you do. You got to understand that you're not going to get some of the calls that we've been getting, it's just the way it is. I'll leave it at that. But when you look at it, we've shot 31 free throws against BYU, 35 against West Virginia. I can guarantee you we're not shooting 30 against KU at KU. And so you got to make shots, got to get stops, but it takes everyone to be locked in and focused on the game plan. And then, you also need them hopefully to not shoot very well, and maybe they have a couple guys that have an off night, and then we can take advantage of those opportunities.
I mean, is probably mental toughness. Is that maybe the hardest, thing to overcome when you're playing in Allen Fieldhouse? The teams like Kansas is always they always have a good team, right? But you mentioned, maybe the officiating, maybe the crowd noise, the environment, is mental toughness the number one, thing that you have to have when you're playing at Kansas?
Yeah, well, you definitely have to be mentally tough, and when it comes to that, and understanding that them playing at home is almost like them getting spotted 10 points, right? And so you have to figure out a way to overcome that. You have to understand they're going to go on runs, right? And you can't get discouraged when they go on runs and the crowd gets going. You have to stick together. And kind of have a us against the world mentality, and so anything that happens in there, you can't dwell on the previous play. You got to move on to the next one and be mentally tough to get through that. And then, you got to have all 15 guys stick together and figure out a way that we can go in, and how do you play your best on the next possession, whether that's offensively, get the best shot we can get, or defensively, how can we get a stop and come together and do that? A lot of things that happen, when you're in the game like that, where it can be really loud with the crowd. It's hard to hear the coach on the sideline. So it takes some player leadership on the floor to make sure that guys are getting into the offensive sets they need to get into, or communicating the right things on defense.
You're a coach. What would be your message to the K-State, players, to the team right before you head out onto the court, out of the locker room, before that Kansas game? How do you win in that building, and what are the things that you have to do? I know I just asked you that, but what would be your message to the team?
Go shock the world. Right. We haven't obviously beat them since 2006. Go shock the world tonight. Why not us? Tonight's the night that we put everything together. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. Anytime you get a chance to play, not only, in the Big 12 or against, anybody, but obviously in Lawrence, tough environment. Let's go shock the world tonight. Prepared for the moment. We've been playing, shooting the ball really well. Let's go shoot it well. Let's get comfortable early, and let's go do what we do, man. And that's hoop, and so as long as we have that mentality of going out to we have something to prove, and we're playing to make the NCAA tournament. Let's go be desperate, and whatever we have, there shouldn't be anything, left in the tank at the end of the night, and so bring everything we have and leave it all on the floor.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing that Kansas just lost to BYU at home? Is that maybe the blueprint, that BYU is giving K-State how to win there? Or is that, tough for Kansas State because now KU is going to come out with maybe something more to play for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think anytime it's KU, K-State, I don't know if there's any extra motivation that's needed from either side, just because of the rivalry and obviously KU, they're sitting on the guys that are there are sitting on we don't want to be the team to lose to Kansas State at home, since it hadn't happened since 2006. And so I don't know if there's really any extra that needs to be there. I think it's kind of just one game. It's on its own. And everyone knows it's big stakes because of the rivalry and because, we beat them in Manhattan. So, they're already going to come with that, the mindset of, they got to get business done at home. So, I don't know if there's any extra motivation, but it should be obviously a fun game, and hopefully our guys will play well.
Let's take a step back and look at the overall picture for Kansas State. Do you think that 3 more wins from now until Selection Sunday will be enough? Now, obviously, you can get 2 in the regular season and then go get 1 in Kansas City. Is that going to be enough? 3 wins from now until March? I can't remember what 16th or something. Is that going to be enough for this team to get in?
I think so. So if we if we obviously beat Cincinnati, and then we split with KU and Iowa State, and then we go get 1 in the Big 12 tournament, we'll probably be a 9 or 10 seed going into the Big 12 tournament. I think it would be enough. Obviously, I think if you get 2 in the Big 12 tournament, then you're definitely in. There's no doubt. But what can't happen is, these last 3 games in the regular season, we can't go 0 for 3. We really don't want to go 1 for 2. Because I think you're going to need more games in the Big 12 tournament to kind of move up and improve your spot into the NCAA tournament. So, if we finish 4 and 5 out of these last 5, that means we have a really good quality win against either KU or Iowa State. And then we go win 1 in the Big 12, and then hopefully that's what we need to get in.
Obviously, Cincinnati is not the best team in the country, but that's a quadrant 1 win if you get it, just because of the fact that it is on the road. And so, if you get one of those 2 against KU or Iowa State, that's going to be great for your resume, but same thing with Cincinnati, right? I mean, just because they're not as good as those teams still is going to be a good win on the resume.
Yeah, exactly. And it's on the road, and we haven't played well on the road as of late. So we need a road win is really big for us. And I think Cincinnati's that team that we can get one against if we come in and shoot the ball and play well.
Kansas State hasn't had much success in Kansas City as of late in the Big 12 tournament. I guess just how could K-State overcome that? You look at what happened last year. They lose to TCU and pretty bad loss. Obviously, they turn it around real quick and go to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. But what are those keys to just winning in Kansas City? Because, Clint, it's probably going to be a situation where, even if K-State goes 3-0 over these next 3 games, you're probably going to get one. You're probably going to want one in Kansas City just to feel safe on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, and we typically have good crowds, that show up, and obviously for us and for KU and in Kansas City, and then you want to play well for the crowd and for the fans that show up and support the team, and it's a different environment. The good thing is we've played there before, and when we played Wichita State there, and so we should have a little bit more familiarity with playing in Kansas City, and hopefully our guys will be more comfortable than obviously the team that we're going to play against. But it's a neutral site, so even though we might have more fans there, it's a neutral site, and we got to come in with the mindset of we need the game, and no matter who we're playing, we need it more than they need it, and and we got to get comfortable early in the game, and then we got to defend really well, and hopefully we can do those things.
Let's circle back now to these 2 games coming up. Okay, obviously, if you're a K-State player or coach, you know that game against Kansas is going to be a rocking atmosphere, and so they've had that one, I'm sure, circled on the calendar. At the same time, though, they do treat every game like it's its own season. And so how do you, if you're drum thing, how do you keep your guys locked in on this task at hand at Cincinnati, without looking ahead to Kansas?
There's no other if we want to make the NCAA tournament, there's no other choice, and we have to win this one on the road against Cincinnati, and especially just given obviously KU at KU and even Iowa State at home, and they're playing as well as anybody in the country, and they're tough out, and so it's we have to lock in on this game if we want to make the NCAA tournament, and that's where I think that the focus has to be, and that has to be the message, right? And we always talk about the one game at a time. Well, we want to make the NCAA tournament. This is the most important game. Those other games don't even matter. If we lose this game, those other games might not even matter, and so let's go win this one on the road, quadrant 1 win, and that's where it has to be, and then we can move on to the big showdown with KU.
You mentioned with the turnovers for Kansas State have been cut back a little bit. The rebounding on the defensive end, that needs to improve. Is there anything else over these last couple of games where Kansas State needs to really hone in on it if they want to win games?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting to the free throw line has been really good. So we've shot the ball well from the outside, but we've also, as I mentioned, got to the free throw line 30 times or plus or more in our last 2 games, and because our, especially our top 3 guys shoot the ball so well from the free throw line, that means that, we get there, it's 90, 85% chance, we're going to score the basketball. And I think that's always key for us, and so that can offset, help offset any nights that we maybe don't shoot it as well as we have been. So we have to stay aggressive, aggressive at the rim, getting there and knowing that, with Perry, Kaluma, and Carter, it's a high percentage that we're going to score on that possession. So I think that's the balance that we need, when we talk about, you're making shots from the outside, plus you're getting to the free throw line. That tells us that our offense is playing at a really high clip right now.
Even against KU, you're telling this team to try to go get to the free throw line?
Oh man, we're not going to get 30, but if we can, if we can get 15, 20, I think that'd be really well. And then we definitely have to make some shots, but we can't be discouraged on going in there and challenging Hunter Dickinson. Obviously, if you get him in foul trouble early, the better it is for us, the harder it is for KU. So, we can't be afraid of going in and trying to challenge him early, especially in the first half, where, we get him out of the game and maybe we can take advantage of some of the inside, or lack of inside presence that KU might have.
Okay, Clint. K-State's got two big ones coming up, both on the road away from Bramwich Coliseum. They've only won I think it was just West Virginia, right? That's the only road win in Big 12 play. They did beat LSU on the road, right? So they're capable of it, but the time is now to start turning things around in terms of playing on the road for Kansas State. So Clint, as always, we appreciate your time, dude. This is the best part of you being on this show is, I mentioned it. You're the one that knows how to beat KU. I hope these guys are listening to the Friday shoot around.
I appreciate it. It's always fun.
Yep. We'll be back next week here. Hopefully we're breaking down K-State victories. If not, we'll break down what went wrong for Kansas State. But again, appreciate you guys. If you're on YouTube watching, like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff. Fitz loves it, makes him very happy. But other than that, we'll talk to you guys next week.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.